I remember Michelle Obama saying if Trump won, women would suffer.
If we don't get this election right, your wife, your daughter, your mother, we as women will become collateral damage to your rage.
Trump's pretty much already president, so let's check in on Michelle.
Attention, everybody. We are full of joy and here today. So honored to have you, Michelle Obama, at a happy place. Michelle Obama's walking, we can't let her go. She's a classy lady, we just love her so. We got Michelle Obama.
Michelle Obama looks proud of her country again, which is weird because Biden's about to turn the White House over to Hitler. Everybody should be scared, right? At the Obama house, it's Christmas as usual. The only thing keeping Michelle up at night is what to stuff in Barack's stocking.
Who's the hardest to shop for?
He is. Oh, my gosh. Yeah. I mean, he's just a boy, you know? I mean, he just doesn't do much. He golfs, and there's only so many golf balls you can get a dude.
Right.
I'm trying to, like, get him clothes that he wouldn't buy, you know?
Okay.
Because he's also cheap.
Well, who is the best gift giver out of you guys?
Probably me.
Okay.
You know, I think I am, because I'm actually paying attention to everyone.
Ah,
you know?
that is the
I'm,
trick.
like, listening.
Michelle just said her husband's cheap, doesn't listen, and chases balls all day like a little boy. We'd show you the part where Jennifer Hudson asked Michelle about what it's going to be like living under a dictator and how women will survive the next 4 years, but she never asked. Michelle put down some ground rules for the interview. After the biggest election in the history of the country, her words, not mine, Michelle said, "Don't ask me about politics." Michelle's only allowed to be asked about her new book, her new Netflix show, and her new fruit juice brand. Not very maha. Michelle's got to push product. It's the new golden age, remember? It's almost like she's saying life goes on. The whole democracy is on the line was just a line. Kamala Harris, same thing. She lost to a tyrant, and she's still laughing.
Good morning. Oh. Remember the context in which you exist. Yeah, I did that. In the face of an obstacle, do we throw up our hands or do we roll up our sleeves? And as we approach...
She doesn't seem very worried that Trump's not in prison and he's about to take over the military. Kamala just robbed donors to pay Oprah and Sharpton, then flew to Hawaii for a week with Doug. I guess that's normal. Bill Maher is also not losing any sleep over Trump.
Of course, the worst things could happen. Trump could get into office and blow up the world on day one. But, you know, I'm not going through the same spilkus I did last time.
Really?
Yeah. Like, when it happens, wake me, but I'm not giving my mind over to it again. And I'll see what happens. And one thing I've learned about the future is that we're very bad about predicting it. And whatever you think is probably likely to happen probably isn't going to happen.
Wait a second. The media said Trump was going to order SEAL Team 6 to assassinate journalists. And now the media is like, I'm going to sleep. Wake me up when they're outside the door. The journalists who thought they'd be dead in January were calling Trump for an interview.
The day after Donald Trump had that crazy rally at Madison Square Garden.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I rolled the dice, and I called him on the phone.
Yeah.
And he answered! I called him and said, I want an interview with you. Obviously, he said no. But my point is, I was able to get to him by dialing his phone. Right. Now, that might be completely and you're like, I can't believe people know this guy's phone number.
And remember when all these economists said Trump was going to light up inflation and send us into a recession? Well, this just in from the Wall Street Journal. CEOs on Wall Street say they're more optimistic than they've been in years. What's going on? Well, the media keeps writing these stories about the resistance. What resistance? I haven't seen it. Where? Democrat donors are dining at Mar-a-Lago. Fetterman's meeting with Hegseth. We haven't seen a single protest anywhere. The only thing they're resisting is Doge, because they want to keep working from home. The legacy media's audience is disappearing. MSNBC and CNN are getting spun off like dead weight by their parent companies. So these hosts are starting to tell the truth, because lying just got bad for business. George Stephanopoulos just cost ABC $15 million because he defamed Trump. And the Post reports he's humiliated. First, Disney lost to DeSantis, and now they're funding Trump's presidential library. And Stephanopoulos is apoplectic. Chuck Todd's having nightmares about it, and he doesn't even work in the media anymore, I think.
This was stunning to me, and absolutely a gut punch to anybody that works at a major media company, because I think it sets a precedent that is going to be very difficult. It's going to be very difficult to get out from under, potentially. I just, I think the risk of losing this suit was 5%.
Right.
Like 50%.
For ABC. ABC.
For ABC.
Yeah.
So, this was a decision to buy off a bad PR.
Well, today, Trump sued that Iowa pollster, Selzer, who accused brazen election interference and consumer fraud for releasing a suppression poll on the eve of the election that had him down 3 to Kamala when he won by 13. Everybody in the discredited press is now trying to save their careers. They're all running the podcast saying, I knew we were going to lose.
If Democrats are the party about caring more and doing more and caring about everybody, they also need to have some hard conversations that when you care more and you treat people better, it might make the world cost more. And they're afraid to say that. And you have to just start saying those, right? Like, the world's gonna cost more. Guess what? When you guys leave here and you go to a bar, you're gonna spend at least 10 minutes at that bar bitching to one another about how much the drinks cost. And so when we wonder, and I'm not saying you shouldn't bitch about it, but we should just get real about how things are.
Well, we just watched Stephanie's interview with Kamala right before the election. She folded. She didn't press her on high prices. She didn't say any of this. And if Kamala won, Stephanie wouldn't be saying this now either. She's trying to act independent so she lands on her feet when her network gets sold. The ladies of The View are doing the walk of shame. Watch.
The Democratic Party has always been the party of the working class, has always been. If you look at all the policies, they're for the people. And I think even myself, as someone who grew up in abject poverty, I think I missed the boat in terms of realizing that there are so many Americans that still have that experience that I grew up with.
Sunny Hostin says she grew up in abject poverty and she fought all the way up to The View, where she gets paid millions of dollars to sit around and talk. Kind of like me. And for the last 4 years, she didn't notice the working class was struggling. She didn't see the prices going up. She didn't see the migrants coming in, the crime. I don't believe that. It was all over. She saw it, and she was comfortable where she was. She didn't care about the people she left behind. And she hated Trump so much and wanted to get along with Whoopi and Joy so badly, she forgot where she came from. And that's great that she's now come around, but I don't know if I believe her. I don't know if she's just saying that to save her skin when the executives shake up The View. Bill Clinton says Democrats have been on cruise control and just forgot about the people they work for. Listen.
Well, I think we got used to winning elections, and we forgot that every one of them had to be hard fought and that it wasn't just some sort of automatic thing. Once disabling behavior is no longer such a problem because people are more worried about the world they knew crumbling around them without some certainty of where they're going to be in the new world.
The Democrats thought they could buy this election, call Trump names, and their base would turn out. But they hurt their people. They took them for granted. and never saw the landslide coming because they didn't listen to anything if they didn't like what they were hearing.
With either side. But what I don't like about the Democratic Party at this particular moment in time, you keep walking around on your moral high horse, acting like you're above reproach. But I'm sick of all of this. I really am. Democrats, you lost. You got your butts whipped. Own it, live with it, accept it, embrace it, and look in the damn mirror. And stop acting like the problem lies with others. It lies with you. Your messengers were weak. Your message was weaker. And I know that because the American people said so in droves. Own it. And get off your moral high horse.
It wasn't just the message. It was the action. We still haven't heard from Democrats. Maybe we shouldn't have opened the border. Maybe we shouldn't have spent $28 trillion in 4 years. Maybe we shouldn't have put criminals, cross-dressers, and vagrants on a pedestal. Unless you hear that from Democrats, they haven't owned what they did. Actions speak louder than words. And dancing like Michelle and cackling like Kamala after scaring the hell out of us about how big of a threat Trump was kind of gives away the game.
Well, Governor Hannity and Joe Biden is still president for a few more weeks, but you, the American people, are ready, obviously, to move on. According to a new Reuters poll, Biden now has an approval rating of only 38%. Joe will now spend most of the next month sleeping, hopefully, while his staff is working overtime to sabotage the incoming Trump White House. And meanwhile, his vice president is fresh off a humiliating defeat, desperately trying to cling to relevance while pretending to be joyful. It was such a joyful campaign. You're a Nazi. You're a racist. You're a fascist. Take a look.
The true test of our commitment is whether, in the face of an obstacle, do we throw up our hands or do we roll up our sleeves? And as we approach, and I ask you to remember the context in which you exist. Yeah, I did that.
I got to admit, I kind of miss the giggling vice president. I do. I miss it. The giggles are back. The word salads are back. The passage of time is next. It is pretty clear to pretty much everyone now that the adults were not in charge over the last 4 years. Instead, we got a blend of incompetence, corruption, far-left radicalism mixed with nothing but a steady stream of outright lies. And breaking today, 14 suspected gang members with possible links to that notorious Tren de Aragua gang. Well, they were detained in Aurora, Colorado. Remember that during the campaign? They're accused of invading a local apartment complex where they kidnapped, brutally tortured their victims. Now, you might recall that President Trump, Vice President-to-be Vance, and other Republicans, they have been sounding the alarm on this issue for months, warning violent, illegal immigrant gangs were wreaking havoc on apartment complexes in Colorado and across the country. You know, these gang members poured across Joe Biden, Kamala Harris's wide-open southern border. So, of course, unvetted as they are, top Democrats, their friends in the legacy media mob, they told us that it was nothing to worry about. You might recall. Take a look.
President Trump was actually in Aurora, Colorado, talking to people on the ground. And what we're hearing, of course, Martha, is that people are terrified by what has happened with some of these Venezuelan gangs.
Senator Vance, I'm going to stop you because I know exactly what happened.
Martha.
I'm going to stop you. The incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs, and Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border? Americans are so fed up with what's going on, and they have every right to be.
Just a mere handful. I mean, what's a handful of apartment complexes on top of the known terrorists that they've allowed into the country, the murderers, the rapists, the cartel members, the gang members, people murdering, raping, American citizens, people guilty of other violent crimes against members of our country. You know, ultimately, this is why so many Americans turned against the Democratic Party. They created this crisis, then told you that their suffering wasn't real or significant, and then lied and said the border was secure and the border was closed. And now, for one last twist of the knife, the Biden administration is practically giving away the border wall materials, pennies on the dollar, only out of spite to slow Donald Trump's ability to keep his promise to secure the border. That means you will pay for more border wall materials, and you'll pay a lot more. So really, they're hurting us. These Democrats breathlessly smearing Donald Trump for years, all while claiming to be so virtuous, protectors of democracy and the rule of law. They embarked on one witch hunt after another. It's been 9 long years. Get Trump, get Trump, get Trump, and exclaimed that no one's above the law. And then Biden pardoned his own son, Hunter, and more to come, by the way, for an 11-year crime spree, letting him off the hook for gun charges, tax charges, and so much more. And Joe is only getting started. How many other Bidens will be pardoned by the time this is all said and done? Will Joe pardon himself, these preemptive pardons? Remember, he granted clemency to a doctor who diluted chemotherapy drugs, along with a woman who stole $4 million from the USDA program to feed poor children, and a government official who stole $53 million in tax revenue in a small Illinois town of, 15,000? And perhaps worst of all, you know, Biden also commuted the sentence of the notorious Kids for Cash judge. That's the guy that was taking kickbacks. How nice of him. From a private, for-profit detention center in exchange for locking up kids at their facility. All told, 4,000 juvenile convictions were thrown out. But that's not all. Last month, Biden commuted the sentences of 2 Chinese spies and a relative of a high-ranking official from China's Communist Party convicted of child pornography charges. I wonder if this has to do with the WhatsApp message to the head of the energy conglomerate in China, CEFC. I'm sitting here with my father, and between everyone he knows and my ability to hold a grudge, you're going to regret not giving us the money, and voila. Days later, millions of dollars went into one of those James Comer described bank accounts of Hunter Biden. And in yet another nod to China, Biden signed a 5-year science pact with the Communist Chinese, despite the COVID disaster and near constant intellectual property theft, unfair trade practices. I'm pretty certain Trump will deal with all of this in short order. Donald Trump is not going to abide by what Joe Biden just signed. And maybe, just maybe, Joe Biden is not the good, honest, decent statesman that he's been claiming to be, because it appears to be that way, you know, with Biden on his way out. The international community, they frankly are breathing a sigh of relief. World leaders lining up to meet with Donald Trump. He has already spent time with several presidents, prime ministers from Europe. Argentina's president flew to Florida to meet with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. So did the wife of the late Japanese prime minister. He was assassinated, you may recall, back in 2022. And Canada's prime minister, Little Justin, he also paid Trump a visit at Mar-a-Lago. But Little Justin, well, he may not be in leadership for much longer. Yeah, the far-left prime minister is fighting off votes of no confidence as we speak after facing his own economic and immigration crisis. Now, as per usual, Trump is ready, willing to meet and talk to anybody. You know, we could barely get Joe to speak, and when he did, it was a disaster and an embarrassment. Unlike Biden and Harris, Donald Trump is well-versed. He's capable. He did an impromptu, nearly hour-and-a-half presser yesterday. And as one MSDNC host pointed out, he is accessible. Just ask Joe Amica also. Take a look.
I called him and said I want an interview with you. Obviously, he said no. But my point is, I was able to get to him by dialing his phone. Right. Now, that might be completely and you're like, I can't believe people know this guy's phone number. Yeah. But the reverse of that, if I were to want to connect with VP Harris or President Biden, there's 50 people between me and that. I could write a note that maybe could get to somebody, then through Pony Express and a pigeon, something might end up in a mailbox near them. And I called DJT to say, yo, can I have an interview?
And he
told me to
answered.
go myself, but I still was able to connect with him.
By the way, very nice of Donald Trump. Very nice to take her call. Very nice to meet with Joe and Mika. However, I would gently remind the president, not that he's going to listen to me, that they hate him. They're the ones that spread and peddle the lies and conspiracy theories about him. They're the ones that wanted him in jail. They're the ones that called him a fascist and racist and every other name in the book. And you know what? Maybe they're not your friends, and you just have to, come to a reckoning to that truth. But the days of secrecy, dishonesty, lack of availability, and lack of transparency, they are over. From the border to crime to the economy to spy balloons and little drones flying over our head, Trump is upfront about his plans, about his agenda. And as for that current drone scandal now brewing nationwide on January 20th, 2025, the gaslighting in this country will come to an end. Our federal government is now abusing power like never before, but in 34 short days, Donald Trump will bring about the return of a basic principle. Our federal government cannot abuse power like this ever again. In 24 days, Trump will bring about a return of a basic American principle. Our government will once again be by the people, for the people, of the people, and the all-powerful bureaucratic state is facing a reckoning. We will have a return to constitutional order. What did our framers and our founders, what did they want more than anything? They wanted something called limited government, greater freedom, and hopefully we can return to that.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.